Welcome to the Wild Ones podcast, the show where we chat about bike stuff. I'm Jimmy, and this week I am joined by producer Emily and Nick the bike mechanic Vieri.
Sounds like a boxing match.
Yeah, are we going to fight?
You better not fight my wife. How's everyone doing? What's been going on?
Good. Been busy at the shop. Doing Saturday rides now as well, which is good. It forces me to ride every single Saturday. Haven't killed anybody off yet. So nobody believed that I would make it through 5 rides and nobody crashing badly. But yeah.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how dangerous are the routes?
We started really tame, but then people seem to not enjoy it as much. So then one weekend, Lucas and I just kind of slightly cracked and went wild as we could go. And everybody seemed to have loved it. There's a few minor tiny little naps.
Naps?
Just lie down.
Yeah. Oh, I see.
But nobody got hurt. So yeah, I think going forward, we're just going to kind of try and make it fun.
I was considering coming on one, but now we've had this conversation, I'm going to revert back to not.
But if anything's dangerous, you can just walk. You know what I mean? And you like running, walking, jogging. So I mean, it's good training for you.
I guess the only other thing I want to add at this point early on is I'm going to be at Ruler on Thursday and Friday. If you are there, come and say hello. I've got a moustache.
I'll be there Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So, yeah.
Should we get in some news?
Let's do it.
So first up, a new world record in everesting has been set. And it was by a student on a unicycle. So mountain biker and roadie Mason Allen decided he was going to have a crack at the challenge, which sees cyclists do a rep of a single hill to ascend the height of Everest in one ride. That's 8,848 meters of elevation, or about 29,000 foot. He chose a hill on the campus at University of Virginia where he studies. The hill is only about 68 meters of elevation, so he did 130 reps in total, which is about 192 kilometers, 120 miles. And as I said, and I will reiterate, on a unicycle.
That's crazy.
The whole challenge took Mason 21 hours and 9 minutes to complete. He beat the previous unicycle record by 2 hours. What an absolute legend. 21, I'll be honest, I thought that duration was going to be double that. 21 hours, that seems rapid.
That is a long time to be on any bike, but a one-wheeled.
Yeah, but I also don't get... On a normal bike, obviously I don't say you shouldn't concentrate, but you don't have to concentrate as much. I mean, you ride up the hill, you focus, as pedaling, balance kind of comes naturally to you. And then when you get to the top, you get your freewheel down. But a unicycle doesn't have a freewheel. So you're pedaling up and you're pedaling down.
Oh, God.
And you're concentrating downhill. I mean, arguably it's harder to go downhill than uphill.
As someone that has never ridden a unicycle, I'm going to have to assume that once you're really, really good on a unicycle, it's just like riding a bike. As in, you can switch off a bit because you it just happens. You become good at it.
I've tried several times and I just can't get it. I mean, I think it requires some kind of core stability, strength, balance.
Well, I think the problem is you said you've tried several times. Mason has been learning to unicycle for 6 to 7 years and, in his words, has been taking it more seriously for the last 5 years. So I think you need to maybe do it for a few years rather than a couple of times to think that you're going to be good at it.
Have you ever fancied doing an Everest, Nick?
No. I just don't know. What? Everything for that, everything about it is just wrong to me in terms of, firstly, you're going uphill several times. Secondly, you don't really get to enjoy the downhill. Thirdly, it's unsocial because you can't ride with anybody else, really.
You can ride with loads of people. It just doesn't have to be one person.
Then I don't want to do the full ride with you.
Well, I think you should reframe it because you're one of those people that get, you send me reels all the time of people, well, actually you stopped now because you know I don't care about them, descending outrageously fast. So what you should probably do is reframe it as it's a downhill Everest.
Oh, doing that.
So then the uphill is just so you can do the downhill. So stop thinking about the uphill. That's just a means to the end. It's actually a downhill Everest.
Just imagine how fast you get by the end of it, when you know every single corner after doing it, 130 times?
Exactly.
There was a point when Francis did his BMX Everest.
Which mental.
There was a point at the end of it, he became... I would describe it as delirious. the things he was talking about. We were sort of on the side, we were on the Pennines, so there's lots of, not wild sheep, but they roam quite freely. And the discussions that he was having about the sheep. I mean, he's not in his own little world by the end of it.
I mean, he's not the most normal at the best of
Yeah,
times.
yeah, true.
So, I mean, some of the stuff he's done, like that 500 kilometers on a velodrome. I mean, can you think of anything more boring than that as well?
It really is taking a hobby and making it not fun, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
But, you know, type 2 fun. People find their fun in different ways. This is it.
Yeah.
Well, I guess there's actually two things that I've stumbled across recently that fall into potentially boring that I actually find really interesting. One of which is someone recently completed, I think it's maybe the second time ever, a vertical marathon. So this was running, not cycling. So they ran up a hill. The elevation gain was 26.1 miles or whatever it is for a marathon. Oh. So to put that in context, an Everest is 8 kilometers. This was 40 odd kilometers of elevation gained.
Stairs, basically.
Well, no, but yes.
But then if you then factor in the fact that if this kid isn't, well, I'm assuming he's good at running because I mean, you wouldn't be able to do. But let's say he doesn't have perfect style and he bounces around while he runs, and he's running at, let's say, 170 steps per minute, and every time he's bouncing an inch up and down, that's 170 inches extra elevation gain that's not being measured on this. So if you actually did it, if you just went up some stairs, it'd be way more elevation than what he actually went up.
Well, interestingly, it's not that interesting at all. It is completely and utterly not interesting. So
Let's talk about it then.
Yeah. I'm doing quite a bit of running at the minute, and the channel's sponsored by Garmin. So I've got a Garmin running watch, which, to be honest, is the only running watch I've ever used in the many years that I've been running. And one of the metrics that you actually get on the running metrics for Garmin stuff is how much vertical oscillation you get. So actually how much height.
Wobble.
Well, upwards though, not
wobble.
forwards. So it tells you how far you're going, how your stride, but also your up and down. So you could, in theory, actually calculate.
Yeah, which is, if you did it, it'd be frightening figures. I mean, it's monstrous in terms of climbing. And then they did a calculation. If you weighed 75 kilos and you bounced up and down 1 inch and you ran for 5 kilometers, it's something like you've lifted 1 metric ton off the ground extra. Your body weight in terms of this energy expelled that you didn't need to.
This is why running just ruins you.
Yeah, but same as cycling, like efficiency. I think a lot of bike stuff as well, people concentrate on aerodynamics and all the things which might be important in certain instances, but pedal stroke, if you're not pedaling efficiently, you're just you're wasting a lot of energy.
So there's another event I found very recently, and I think is absolutely amazing. Again, it's a running event. However, I was actually chatting to Nick about it, not because it has the word backyard in it, but I was like, Nick's the kind of lunatic that would want to get involved with me on this. So I think me and Nick might set up an event at some point in the future. And I want it to be, so there's this running thing called a backyard ultra. No association to Backyard Bike Shop at all. It's been going around since I think the 60s or 70s, something like that. It's been around for ages. And the concept of it is 100 miles divided by 24, which works out a weird number. And then you run that distance, so it's about 6 or 7 miles on the hour, every hour, until there's only one runner left.
So it doesn't just end at 24 hours?
No, it just there are some that end at 24 hours.
People try and do 100 miles, but you just carry on. So essentially, you run the lap.
It's a last man standing.
If you run really fast, you can stop and eat food,
Yeah.
you can have a nap, you can sit down. And then on the next hour, you're on the start line again, you start. And then essentially people just fall out eventually. Kind of like, I've had enough.
So what I love about this event is, yes, it's physical, but there's so much recovery time involved in it that it is very much a mental race. And I think it's very, very cool. And I want to do a cycling one.
It breaks your rhythm as well. So you can't just run out of the pace because you have to stop to wait for the next hour. You can't just run past the finish line. When you get there, you have to stop and wait for the next hour before you can start again. There's a lot of factors involved. Do you run faster? Do you run slower?
The fittest, fastest person doesn't necessarily win this event, which is why I like it. So the running one is 7 miles, I think it is, every hour. So I think for cycling, you at least have to double it. So it's more like 15, 20 miles, maybe 15, maybe 16 kilometers, maybe 10 miles every hour. And then see how long it goes. But I think on a bike, wowee, that's going to be a long event, isn't it?
I think it works better as running though. Because on a bike, you can kind of coast. So to run slow is arguably just as hard as, or even harder for a really good runner than running fast. Because they'll be walking most of it and you kind of run, jog. Where on a bike, if you're really good at it, you can time it for quite a few of the laps to just ride the exact speed you need to ride to get back there a minute or two before the next start line.
Oh, no, because the distances are mega short.
Yeah.
No, it's not. No, sorry, it's not 6 or 7 miles on the run. That's kilometers. It's 4 miles.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay.
So it's the duration is like a typical runner or a fast runner will still be running it in like 25, 30 minutes because they'll hold off. So the point is there's always going to be loads of recovery time.
I get that, but if you rode a bike at below 70% of your heart rate and you fueled properly, you could ride for hours and hours and hours. Doesn't matter how fit you are. So if the ride is...
But it's the same with the running.
Yes,
that's why it's a mental
for a good
event.
runner, but there's impact and thing like where a bike, if I took you on a bike ride and rode at 10 kilometers an hour, we could be riding for days if we get enough food. Chafing is going to be our issue, not
well, there you go. You just make it a week-long event and last one standing.
It's last one standing.
Like a bee sting.
Or you make it really technical. I
Yeah.
did a 10-hour mountain bike race once.
Get Nick to design the route so it's like hell.
That's the thing. It doesn't need to be technical at all because it's going to be about sleep. This is why it's not a physical race at all. It is a mental race.
You
and that's
get
why I think
lunatics
it's
like
great.
Josh Reed that doesn't sleep. I don't know what that kid does, but yeah.
You've got to sleep at some point. Oh, what about, for some reason, I keep thinking about tandems at the minute.
I used to race tandems.
Did you?
Yeah.
Front or back?
It's alternated,
Oh, okay.
depending on like race to
Which
turns.
bit of the tandem did you sit on?
No, well, because the problem with the tandem is that you want essentially the stronger rider should be at the back, but you can't always do that depending on size. So if you can get a rider that is taller than you, but you've got more strength, then you can sit at the back. But if the size discrepancy is massive, then you have to go on the front because you can't have the tandem unbalanced. But it's massive. It's something that in England people don't do, but South Africa, they take it really seriously.
Really?
I mean, there's races like the Cape Argus and the 94.7 and things like that where they've got 500 racing tandems set off together in a group. Imagine that. You're in a peloton of 500 bikes, all tandems. And it's carbon tandems, deep section wheels. People take it really, really, really seriously over there. It's a big thing.
I think Sato do a custom.
I've just seen a new one. Yeah, it looks so sexy.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's great. I mean, we had a tandem when I raced. We had a carbon fiber tandem. It had a Zip 808 on it. Campbell Record Group said. It's a serious thing.
Nice.
It's not like the tandems you see every year where it's some old rickety kind of badly put together. It's a big sport over there.
Every time I mention tandems, whoever I mention them to, we're always like, let's get one.
Yeah.
Let's go on an adventure. I just think it'd be great. Get a tandem, stick a load of luggage on it, get on the ferry over to the Netherlands, do a little tour of the Netherlands because it's flat. And
It's nice to be stood on the back because you don't have to concentrate.
It's like the opposite of a unicycle.
It's the opposite.
There must be a tandem Everest record.
I'm 100% there will be.
There'll be somebody.
100%. And I bet it's actually quite competitive.
Yeah.
If he's saying that there's competitive, there's competitive everything, isn't there? There's definitely going to be. Do you want me to find out what it is?
No. I like the thought of I like not knowing.
Okay, fine. We'll just leave that in the air unanswered. So on the topic of weird and wonderful cycling stuff, I know Halloween was a couple of weeks ago now, but we need to take a moment to shout out the funniest cycling Halloween costume I have seen this year. This was the creation of Honor Elliott and her boyfriend Theo. They have actually featured on this channel before. I think they were in a Roast My Ride YouTuber edition.
Yes, also Theo was in our...
helmets.
The fake helmets.
The fake helmets. Yep. So anyway, Honor turned up at Muddy Hell cyclocross race in London's Herne Hill wearing a hilariously huge version of that already massive Visma Lisa Bike TT helmet.
Are you sure that's a Connor, not just the actual helmet?
It could be.
Because they're ridiculous by themselves.
It's actually just a to scale model of the helmet. And what's even funnier is that she raced in it and she came second. And then Theo also fashioned himself an Ineos cask version, which is also very good and maybe didn't get the love that it deserved because I saw it on his picture all over the cycling press, but well done them too. That's good banter.
I mean, that helmet does look like helmets out of Spaceballs. Arguably my favorite movie as a kid growing up. Which is just time trialing is ridiculous, man. Like nobody can take them seriously.
But I mean, maybe some aero gains there because she did come second.
I would love someone to actually aero test that specific helmet.
But you know, you get them those recumbents with the full shell that they set the speed records on because it's so aero.
Yeah, it's
I wonder what
that,
the UCI would say if you just made a helmet that is that big when you sit on the bike that goes all the way to the ground and it's just a full fairing kind of aero setup.
Well, that is essentially what has been made.
Yeah, exactly.
Next, it looks like Zip may be developing real-time smart wheels. So SRAM recently submitted a patent for a sensor which is housed inside a wheel set. And they say it could be used to monitor things like tyre pressure, composite health, wheel speed, lean angle, yaw, and give feedback on road condition. Now, they already sell an aftermarket product called TyreWiz, which is a tyre pressure sensor that connects to a Presta valve, and it retails for about £110. You basically go into an app, you set your desired PSI, and the device will monitor your pressure and warn you if it's going out of range. The idea being that it will catch slow punctures before you notice them, so you're able to do something about it quicker. So it makes sense that they'd want to expand the capabilities of that technology and potentially house it within their own wheel set. Whether it comes to actual fruition or not, we will have to see. It's just in the patent stage at the moment. But what do we think of this?
It's too much, isn't it? It's too much data. There's already too much data. We don't need this stuff. I hope that the reason this stuff is being developed is because the marginal pros at the top end have a desire to be able to monitor absolutely everything. It feels like perhaps it's working towards some kind of inbuilt SRAM like aero monitor. I know there are some aero monitors, but maybe they're going down this route because this product is talking about lean angles and yaw, which I think they use at least yaw in aero testing. For those marginal 1% or 0.001% pros, then yeah, I can see they want the data and be able to analyze it. For normal people, it's just unnecessary. If you do want it, yeah, sure, fine, whatever. But we don't need it, do we?
No, but it probably shows that gravel and gravel racing is becoming more serious, because I'm assuming that's where this sort of thing is aimed at.
But and road, I mean, obviously, I need to declare that I work close to a SRAM.
Yeah,
and I love the stuff.
So on a scale of 1
and
to 10, how much do you love it?
10 out of 10 at the moment. They just do good stuff, I think. Obviously, people can argue, but yeah, I mean, I was always Campag fan, but SRAM's just doing better stuff. I like this. It's not something to sell in mass and people need, but I feel that it's quite a good thing to kind of see how vibration dampening, yes, there's loads of stuff, but from reading that, it's a lot of stuff that it can do. So you can then start potentially.
Yeah.
So you can start looking at running your bike at different tire pressures and seeing how that affects the vibration through the bike. Mm-hmm. I mean, I want this expanded to go, I know Garmin does it on their head units. It's more for mountain biking, but grits and flow. So that kind of measures how rough the trail was, but also how rough you were riding, and how smooth your turns are for mountain biking. So
from what I can see, though, none of this is talking about vibration monitoring.
Well, let's say road conditions, and road conditions is going to be how bumpy it is. So essentially, it's a smooth tarmac, rough tarmac. So there's a lot of stuff that can add in. It's just more of I think it's not something for the everyday cyclist needs, but it's something indirectly the everyday cyclist needs. So there's a few people need this to do the testing, get the data, and then come out with stuff to kind of show people how they can actually improve. Because if you work
improve in terms of what, comfort or
let's say somebody's got this, speed, comfort, well, it all goes hand in hand. If you're more comfortable, you're going to go faster. You're going to be less fatigued. So if somebody can go out there and say, well, we've done tests on this surface or this road, if you drop your tire pressure by this much, you are going to get free speed. It's exactly that. It's free speed to an extent where by knowing a bit more, instead of having to go and buy a new bike to go faster, you can just be, well, maybe I'm running my tire pressure too high or maybe too low.
I suppose that's the extremes where you notice that, though. So, for example, if I was doing a 10-mile time trial on a flat course, it's not going to make that much difference. However, if I was doing a 8-hour bike ride or something that was super technical, then I would notice the effects of making it more comfortable.
Well, so Zip's done tests on this when they released their 101 wheel set, which is the heaviest wheel set they do, with their gravel suspension fork. And they said under an hour, their 303s and 353s, which is their more race-orientated wheels, will be faster. But as soon as you hit the hour mark on gravel, due to fatigue, the heavier wheels, but it's more comfortable because it's got like the rim flexes when it hits a rock or an uneven gravel or road surface. They say as soon as you hit an hour or longer kind of ride, you're going to gain from the comfort and the lack of fatigue. So also the less fit you are, you're going to gain from that. The older you are, you're going to gain from that. So normal people, not professional cyclists. But I just like the idea of, if you take wide tires, low tire pressures, that wasn't a thing until about 3 years ago, 4 years ago. So what I mean is
in drop bar stuff.
Drop bar stuff, yes, exactly. But cycling's been going for almost 100 years competitively, if you look at the Tour de France and things like that.
More than
and
100
only
years.
now people are, so the more data we can get and the quicker we can kind of develop small kind of things to help people enjoy cycling, make it a bit easier. Well,
I'm convinced I'm going to get
not?
some.
I've got the tire ones.
The Tire Whiz
Yes.
thing.
And I don't use them to see for punctures. I just use them purely to kind of like, I've been riding different tire pressures to see how the bike feels and responds, to see how low I can go.
Yeah.
Last winter, I figured out with my new wheels and new tires, I can go down to 14 PSI.
What?
And then my grip riding up like muddy, steep, sharp banks and things like so much better. I'm quite a lot more, I could stand out of the saddle where I wasn't able to do that before.
Grip-wise.
Grip-wise. Yeah. So I know optimal
wow.
for me now for gravel is 18 PSI. In winter, I can go down to 14, but it's a bit of a risk in terms of hitting rocks and stuff. But yeah.
That is insane. I am like the opposite to you, especially on a road bike. I'm like 100 PSI in my tyres and then I will not get a puncture. And I will sit there on a really uncomfortable bike.
What I would say to you is, if you were to, let's use gravel, for instance, 40 mil tyres. If you're running 40 PSI, I would always say something, drop to 35, then drop to 30.
Yeah.
Do that for a few weeks because it's going to feel weird the first ride. And then after you've done it for a few weeks, take it back up to 40 and ride your bike and just see how incredibly uncomfortable that bike is.
Yeah. I rode around on Tannis tyres in London, commuting for a long time. Like I know what pain is.
So yeah, it's just try things. If this is going to make people try different stuff out and things, excellent.
Yeah.
I'm not saying go and buy it because but it's a step in the right direction.
Next up, some industry news. So, sorry for us sounding incredibly doom and gloom because a lot of the news which seems to be coming out at the minute is about businesses going bust and everyone losing money. So here's another one. So firstly, Scottish clothing and accessories brand Endura have reported a £14 million pre-tax loss. That is an absolutely huge downturn for them. They made 2.7 million gross profit in 2020, 2.6 million gross profit in 2021, and were still up £760,000 at the end of 2022. But their latest financial figures show a very different picture, although there is a very familiar picture from everyone at the minute, really, isn't it? Mm-hmm. This is their first loss since 2019, and they put it down to a large reduction in sales, primarily in the UK. The company's director, Andrew Long, says some of the losses have come from impairment of inventory, with stock value reportedly down £2.8 million. The positive side for Endura is that they are owned by Pentland Group, who are absolutely humongous. They own Speedo, Berghaus, as well as being the majority shareholder in JD Sports. Pentland Group recorded a post-tax profit of the same period of £339.8 million.
Whoa.
They are humongous, so they are not
context.
worried or concerned in the slightest. Meanwhile, Pon, which owns loads of cycling brands, including Cervelo, Cannondale, Focus, Santa Cruz, etc., is closing one of its European factories. The plant was responsible for assembling Cervelo and Santa Cruz bikes, and it opened in 2022. Its goal was to produce up to 30,000 bikes a year, but now Pon's shutting it down as part of what it calls a company restructure. And unfortunately, that means 80 employees will be being let go.
The biggest shame of all of this is the pandemic was in the cycling industry, everybody had such a massive boom. And things went well. And there were companies that were in trouble before that pulled themselves out of it and made tons of profits. It just feels a shame that people got a bit greedy. And then if you look at all those numbers for Endura, it just means all their profits have been wiped out in 1 year. So everything they did, 2020, 2021.
Is it greed though, or is it just a downturn? I saw a report from Bicycle Association, which found UK sales of bicycles last year were around a third less than pre-pandemic levels. So yes, the pandemic was an anomaly and it was a real boom. But right now, it's a third less than it even was before then. It just feels like the whole thing has just shrunk.
I get what you're saying, but so from a bike shop perspective, we can talk about, I saw loads of bike shops during the pandemic expanding, hiring loads of new staff, getting bigger premises, stocking up massively, higher than they ever have. But the problem was that you can stock slightly higher and do things, but everybody had to expect that this was going to end. It wasn't going to last forever. So if you start building, that factory was built in 2022 for Pond Group. So you start building all these things, you need to realize that you're riding a wave, it's a high and there's going to be a low. So if you made all those profits, but just slowed down all your production, didn't expand your lines, didn't make more stuff, didn't order more stock in, employ more people, build all these factories, knowing that you're not going to have the same sales, you wouldn't have had the losses.
No, you're right. I do remember during the pandemic when everything was going well, we were all having this conversation of this isn't going to last. Like we were all like, are we doing well? Yeah. Are you doing well? Yeah. It's crazy and it's definitely going to end.
But you need to kind of like, I started getting more and more nervous as the pandemic going on, like when is it going to explode? So just dial it back.
But there isn't any issue with businesses expanding.
No.
As long as they know they will have to contract.
Yeah.
So that's why for Endura, this isn't a big deal because the cycling part is a very small proportion of their group. And they probably need their cycling part to exist just to sit alongside the other brands that they offer. I think it will be the same for Pon as well. They're not going to be worried about closing that factory. They've taken a punt on it. We don't even know if they've made a loss on it. They might have still made a fortune on it.
The sad thing is the human element of it, in that 80 jobs are now lost.
Yeah, Pon's done that to a lot. I mean, they had Cycling Sports Group, CSG, but it's based down south of England. There was Cannondale and GT distributor for the UK. They've closed them and then moved all operations to Europe. So they still run. You can still get Cannondale and GT, but it's just they've downsized that, which is a shame, like people losing their jobs.
Do you think that just less people are into cycling now? Do you think that cycling had an inflated temporary popularity, even regardless of the pandemic, even maybe before the pandemic, and now those people have tried it, done it for a couple of years, and now left? Because I would say anecdotally, amongst friends and acquaintances and the wider group of people that we know, I feel like we're seeing that.
I think there's two things. I think there is a reduction in the number of people riding bikes. And I think the other thing that has happened is lots of people have bought lots of stuff. Like put it into context of a bathroom. How often do you need to buy a toilet? Not very often. But when you buy, you move house, you might go, I'm going to renovate my house. I'm going to actually buy 2 toilets because there's 2 toilets I need to put in my house. And then they're probably going to sit there for 30 years. And I think in a weird way of looking at it, the same thing has happened in cycling. A lot of people have now got 2 bikes, 3 bikes, 4 bikes. They've got 2, 3, 4, 5 sets of kit.
And they're happy with that.
Well, no, yeah, of course. What I'm saying is the ones that are hardcore into it have multiple bikes now. They have a drawer full of kit. They're not looking at going, well, I need more stuff. They go, well, I'm not sure what's happening. I'll just sit on that for a while.
I was at your house yesterday and you've got a portal at the front of your house and a toilet at the back in the garden. So
we do.
You've got loads of toilets at the moment.
We are surplus on toilets at the moment.
Yes, so that's exactly the thing. There will be less cyclists than what there was in 2020 and 2021, but I don't think that much less than pre-pandemic. I think probably more still. From a bike shop, we see this all the time. So if your shop's been around for long enough, you'll see people coming into the sport. They get very keen. They do all the stuff. They do a couple of races. they don't turn pro, they leave the sports again. And then eventually they come back. So it's like ebbs and flows of customers. These customers you haven't seen. I've got a customer at the moment who's buying a bike of us that bought a bike of me in 2014 and then rode for a few years and he stopped cycling completely. Now he's getting back into it again. But I think the pandemic had a massive influx of new cyclists because there's nothing else to do. Some of them would have stayed. Some of the previous ones would have left, but I think there'll still be more people. It's not doom and gloom. It's stock is the issue. And like what Jimmy just said, if you've bought 5 cycling outfits during the pandemic and now financially everybody's struggling, not cycling wise, just in general, everything's more expensive. You don't need 5. You don't need a 6 cycling outfit. You can ride a less, ride at the t-shirt if you wanted to. So people are cutting back on that unnecessary spending. It's a bit more considered purchases.
You're right. I know that you've said this to me on the subject of toilets, Jimmy. You said to me that the best business to be in is toilet paper because everyone's always going to need it.
That is, I've literally since my late teens, I've wanted to own a toilet paper company. And then there was that one which came out maybe a decade ago, which is, I can't even remember what they're called. They're like a hipster toilet paper brand.
Oh, and who gives a crap?
Yeah, something like that. And when I saw that come out, I was like, that could have been me.
Is that the ones that comes like in the boxes? And it's wrapped in paper instead of plastic?
I think it's meant to be better quality in terms of for the environment, but I really their USP is that they're wrapped in like pretty patterned, pretty paper.
It's millennial
I'm pretty sure that's
toilet
what
paper.
Lauren buys, but I don't pay enough attention.
And now a word from our sponsors, Jimmy's Crap Sheets.
Crap sheets, Jimmy's crappers. I guess I have a bit of not doom and gloom for this section, I guess.
Go on.
So my first thing I'm interested in, so I have written it down, you've probably already looked, but I was surprised how big Endura actually are. So their turnover, their reduced turnover for the last financial year was £28 million. That is unbelievably huge. And then the 2020, so that their peak was 2021, which was £48 million. So that will presumably put Endura as one of the biggest cycling clothing brands in the world.
Yeah, that's
and
massive.
I was not expecting that.
I was wondering as well. I know Castelli's got these problems at the moment with Gore, where if you think about back the Gabba, which is a really good wet weather kit, but it's got microplastics in it. There's some new EU laws coming in. So a lot of the clothing manufacturers, especially the more technical ones, are having issues.
Yeah.
Because they've got limitations what they can do. So they're having to massively come up with new products and stuff. Because Endura has always been, well, they're known for really good quality stuff. But to do things like that, you need, when you guys try to develop a rain jacket, it's not easy because you can't just...
There's great fabrics out there, but they just cost a fortune, and they're...
But some of the fabrics you can't use anymore.
So back when we had Atticus, the reason we never did a rain jacket is the fabric we wanted to use was actually made by a fabric manufacturer called Pertex, which some of you will have heard. And for us to be able to access it, we had to buy an entire roll, which was made in Japan, and it was...
And then have it shipped to Italy.
I think it's 5 kilometers long, this roll of fabric, and then you then have to ship it from Japan to Italy. So it would have cost something like, I think it was 100 grand just for the roll of fabric to get it to Italy. And that is not an amount of money we're ever going to be considering investing just in fabric. And then you have to manufacture it.
That was in the pandemic, and we were like, is this bubble going to burst? Should we spend 100k on fabric? Maybe not.
But then there's also, you could buy the fabric. I'm not saying that one, but a fabric, and then get told, sorry, new laws and regulations, you can't use this anymore.
Yeah, it's some sort of chemicals or something like that.
Yeah, it's got to do with microplastics, so they're having to rethink a lot of stuff.
Cool. Well, and finally, in lighter news, the strange air-filled aero backpack that claims to reduce drag has launched on Kickstarter and has already hit its fundraising goal. So you might remember that we talked about this one on a show a while back. It's worth saying that the goal was only about £990 or $1,200. However, it did hit the...
Which idiots bought that, man? Come on, seriously.
Well, there were 24 backers, one of which was us.
What? What?
Yeah, I messaged Francis saying, look, this is live. Dare you to buy one? And he bought one.
Shut up.
Mr. AliExpress is obviously going to buy one.
I think it costs about £46 or like $60-ish. Will it arrive? Who knows?
46 quid?
Yeah.
For
but-
a black bag on a backpack that doesn't even work as a backpack.
Yeah, but it's a bit of fun, isn't it? You can just make a funny
Does
video
that mean
out of
we
it.
don't get food after this podcast?
Yeah, no,
He's
he's spent the food budget for this week. Apparently, Aero Coach also bought one, and Zav is going to put it in a wind tunnel. So we're definitely going to have a chat with him after he's done that and report
So can we
back.
get his, and then when we get our tandem, and Jimmy and I do our everesting tandem, we can weigh one each.
I think this is irresponsible podcasting
Why?
because Zab's going to aero test it.
Yeah.
It's going to test well, and then people are actually going to buy this
No,
product.
they're not.
They
No,
are.
they
We're going to
aren't.
start seeing people commuting in these so that they save 20 seconds.
I would say that nobody's going to risk riding around with them looking like an idiot. But then at the last gravel race I went to, the British champs, a lad was riding a gravel race with an aero helmet. And everybody had aero socks on. So I suppose people do some stupid things.
You are underestimating what is happening here so much because they crowdfunded and succeeded. That already says that people are definitely going to use this product and they have an interest in it.
Well, 24 people are definitely going to use this product.
It should be 0 people.
I know. You don't have to tell me.
I just wonder how many of them are actually just journalists or people who are just morbidly curious rather
Hopefully
than
all of them.
genuine users. But the thing is, it probably will test well, and then you'll turn sideways and the side wind will just take you out.
See, but
you become a kite.
This has like completely made the rest of the podcast like non-valid. We've just had a massive discussion about how people aren't wasting money on stuff they don't need.
This is for science.
And then people got them out.
This is for science, Nick, and entertainment. And that is what we are here for. So we'll buy one so you don't have to, and we'll show you what it's like. Next up, I have a new game for us, which I am calling Unpopular Opinions.
Ooh.
Basically, I found some potentially controversial cycling opinions and hot takes from around the internet. I'll read them, we'll debate them, and we will ultimately decide if we agree or disagree.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yep.
So it's like evolved overrated, underrated,
It is,
isn't
yeah,
it?
because I was struggling to put the list together. So overrated, underrated is going on ice for a little bit, and we're over to Unpopular Opinions. So I got most of these from Reddit threads and Trainer Road forum to start us off. But here is Unpopular Opinion number 1. Roadies are the conservative uncle of the cycling family. They're about 10 to 15 years late to every trend and only reluctantly adopt new tech. Disc brakes, wider tyres, one by, and moving away from ridiculous gearing.
100% true. Like, I mean, it's if you look at the mountain biking world, the stuff they try, everything gets changed. I mean, you can't even compare the two. It's like tractor racing versus Formula One. I mean, it's just, yeah, roadies do not like change.
Well, case in point is the tyre pressure discussion we just had before.
Everything.
Yeah.
Just, it's so hard to get anything new to happen. But yeah, gravel apparently still a fad. No, I completely agree with that statement.
I do agree with it, but I don't want to agree with it.
Listen, why should we be the test dummies? Let someone else make the mistakes, and then when they've come up with a solution, we will adopt it.
But that's the thing is the roadies won't adopt it. They'll argue
We'll
and fight.
complain about it for 5 to 10 years, and then maybe adopt
They'll
it.
ring their mates at the UCI and say, can you please ban this because this disc brake has sliced somebody's foot off, and like all this nonsense where mountain bikers crash more than roadies, and you've never seen somebody you don't see any complaints about it on there.
I have to caveat my agreeing of this with, it does feel like in roadie space that everything is led by marketing rather than led by appropriate product development.
Nice.
Because you don't need wide tires on a road bike. You don't need disc brakes on a road bike. They are nice to haves, and everyone's being forced into it.
I had a discussion with somebody the other day about bottom brackets. So T47 is the new go-to standard. So it gives you everything. So it's got threaded, which loads of people didn't like press fit. So it's threaded, but it's also bigger. So these new bigger axle standards like BB30 and Dub, and that works better because you've got bigger bearings. But then I heard somebody saying, I didn't like it because it doesn't look nice next to the cranks. And then somebody reckoned, I don't know if this is true or not, this is why brands like Cannondale, instead of going to T47, they've gone back to BSA. and it's purely an aesthetic thing. So they're sacrificing performance for aesthetics. And that's Roadies.
It's negligible performance, though, isn't it, in the grand scheme of things?
Well, no.
There's nothing wrong with square taper. Why aren't we still using square taper?
I actually can't argue against that. Square taper was good. I don't have an issue with that. It's just not a thing anymore. Unfortunately, as well, I think people aren't willing to accept that it's not all up to us. Like as a shop, if us as a shop wanted to continue selling rim brake only, no disc brakes, skinnier tires, higher pressures, at some point the industry is just going to force you to not do it.
And that's why I don't like agreeing with this point, because some of it, I think, some of that holding back comes from, no, you're just telling me I need this product. Well, I'm quite happy with what I've got.
But it is good in the long run.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that.
It's like when cars started having really small engines, like 1 litre engines, turbochargers, and everybody got all upset about it, but it's more efficient.
Okay, next one. Bike share programs like NYC City Bike and Lime Bike in the UK make cycling safer for everyone because now cars are used to absolute morons doing God knows what while on a bike. So now cars drive a bit more carefully around all of us. Oh.
Is this like a Boris bike?
Yeah,
It's
ultimately.
not called a Boris bike, but I'll never stop calling it a Boris bike. I have to admit, every time I've been on one of them, I've just ridden like an idiot.
They're fun though, aren't they?
At night in London, doing everything against everything that I believe. You never have a helmet. It's just, yeah. I don't have to make things safer for the people riding them, but yeah.
Okay, so this is an unpopular opinion. I think that riding bikes in London is incredibly safe, and I much prefer and feel safer riding bikes in London than anywhere else in the United Kingdom. And the reason for that, and I'm talking about central London as well, and the reason for it is there are so many cyclists that it is impossible to drive a car in central London and not think about cyclists.
True.
Categorically impossible.
And I know people are going to comment saying like, oh, look at all the crashes and incidents in London. But I haven't looked at the numbers, but I'll take a money bet on it that if you look at the statistics, commuters on bicycle in London alone as a city, I reckon will be more than the rest of the country put
Loads,
together.
yeah, it's per
by
populace.
miles.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. So like, and then if you take all the figures and skew them by amount of people cycling, yes, I think you're right.
It's one of those things where I don't think, I don't know, people riding city bikes and that kind of thing, are they any worse than anyone else? If
No.
you want to say yes, I don't really know the answer to that. But people acting like absolute morons, you go, oh, that's a stupid cyclist, and then probably you do give them more room, but also is that then eroding the reputation? I think the actual problem is that like the term cyclist is like an all-encompassing term for like such a diverse group of people, like anyone on a bike. Do you know what I mean?
I did an experiment pre-pandemic, so 5 years ago, and I cycled when I lived in Sunderland. I cycled into Newcastle, and what I did is I alternated days where I cycled in full lycra, no backpack, on my bike, and then same road, exact same route, and then you could see cars getting impatient, close passing me, and then some days I rode on my fixie with jeans on and normal clothes, still a helmet, but just essentially normal clothes on, a backpack with all my stuff. And I just felt, I don't know, it's not scientific, but cars are giving me a lot more space, overtaking people, a lot more patient, because they didn't see me as a lycra-clad idiot, as people would say. It was a human being going to work.
Well, you say it's not scientific. There are studies that back up that exact thing.
So it's prejudice against cyclists and things like that. I think that's...
The most space I've ever had riding a bike consistently in like a commuter setting is when we used to have the cargo bike. And I think it looks so alien to people that they don't put you as a cyclist. They go, oh, there's a person riding a bike that can carry things. That's interesting.
So are we agreeing or disagreeing?
I agree.
Makes it safer for us because they're absolute morons and people drive carefully around.
Well, I am
gonna go with
I go on it. So.
Okay, next one. Fancy stuff, e.g. electronic shifting, carbon frames and wheels, high quality kit, etc. is nice and it's fun to go fast, regardless if you're racing. If it's not worth the money to you, then don't get it, but don't make snide remarks about people who do like stuff like that.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So this is saying don't take the piss out of people for having nice stuff.
Yeah, you're allowed nice stuff regardless, and you're allowed to want to go fast even if you don't race.
Basically, you want to buy yourself an aero bike, but you're not going to ride fast. As long as, I just feel that as long as you don't live in the delusion of thinking you need it and you have to have it, you're buying it because you like the look of it, then yeah, crack on, do it. I mean, but don't let somebody try and convince you in the marketing saying you have to buy this aero bike over a basic bike because that's what you have to have.
Well, an aero bike, I think, is a rubbish example, because if you live up here where it is hideously hilly, you're going to go faster on a not aero bike because of the elevation up here.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like, but if you just like the look of the aero bike and you want to buy it, then
Yeah, absolutely.
That is me to a T, because I'm on the hunt for a new bike currently. It should probably be an all-road bike, but all of the bikes I like are super racy road bikes, and that is what I want, even though it's a terrible idea.
So
that's fine.
The caveat here is as long as getting the bike the way you like it makes you ride more and not less.
Yeah, so as in it ends up being so uncomfortable
if we
that
get
you
your
don't
bike
ride.
that's so uncomfortable you can't ride, and essentially somebody convinces you need these really small gears because it looks neater, and then you can't ride up any hills and you don't enjoy the bike as long as that's but yeah.
I think we're all agreed. Ultimately, you do you.
Yes.
And electronic gears are better.
Number 4, climbing isn't any harder than flats. It's just slower.
Agreed.
Not if you weigh as much. No, for a skinny lad like you, maybe. But for me, it's hard.
But you just go slower.
Just go slower.
Yeah, but there's the point when you stand still. Yeah, I mean,
There
when you
isn't.
go too slow, you can't balance very well.
That is not true. You need if you had mountain bike gearing on a road bike, there is not a hill in the country that you wouldn't be like, I can just spin my way up there. It's fine.
You could then say that as soon as you hit beyond a 1-to-1 ratio on your gears, getting off your bike, walking next to it can be less energy.
It doesn't matter. It's not what it's about.
Than riding it.
But it isn't about that. It's about riding bikes and enjoying riding bikes.
You disagree?
I disagree. Okay, can I caveat this? If you're doing a long day, so let's say 100 miles plus, flats are harder than hills.
In what way?
You get bored. You just continuously pace the same thing. You don't stand out of the saddle. Like, it's essentially body position stays exactly the same. So I feel your neck gets more sore, your back gets more sore, everything, your backside gets more sore. Where if you have a couple of climbs thrown in there, it's a bit of suffering, a bit of freewheeling, a bit of it's mixture. It kind of mixes it up. So that's, on longer rides, a bit more hills is actually not a bad thing.
Fair. Did we agree or disagree? I feel like you agreed, you disagreed.
The bit that's ruined it for me is the word harder. Climbing is harder, even if it's just mentally harder.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be hard.
Yeah.
Is probably where I'm going with that.
Fair. Last one. Spaces above the stem are fine. You might want to raise your bars someday or sell your bike to someone who wants them higher. Yes, obviously.
Yes, I constantly have this issue with Francis's bikes, where every single bike gets in here, gets it slammed, and then it's like, that's where it lives from now on. I'm happy with spaces on top.
Spaces under the stem are also fine, provided that there's not so many that the bike actually isn't the correct size for you. Have I worded that weirdly?
The steerer flexes too much. So yeah, I think a lot of sizing people are missing the point that sometimes you need to size up or down a frame depending on your bike setup and how you want to ride. So by going up in size, generally speaking, you're going to have a longer head tube. So if you already have like 5 centimeters of spaces underneath your stem, by going up a head tube size isn't always going to be bad, because you can mitigate that with your seat height. As long as your reach isn't too much. We're not going to get into that, but no, I think space is on top. With classic bikes, I used to always enjoy building it with at least 5 mil, sometimes 10 mil of spaces on top of the steerer, because then you can cut the steerer slightly longer. And that's not just for changing your position, that's good for your stem clamps better onto the actual steerer tube and the expander bung, so it's safer.
There's 2 bike mechanics that I have worked with over the years. Nick, who is sitting in front of me, and Billy, who is also the guy that built my howler. And both of you, from as long as I've known you, have always been like, you have to have a 5 mil spacer.
But new aero stems don't always allow for it.
So they're fine.
Cool. Well, hope you enjoyed that round of Unpopular Opinions.
I kind of enjoyed it. It was kind of similar to Overrated, Underrated.
Yeah, that was what I was going for, but just move it on a little bit. Got to keep things fresh. Got to keep it moving.
Yeah, but I think it works quite well because you can sit on the fence
yes.
a little bit more now.
Yeah, fine. Well, thanks for that feedback. We'll probably play some more of this. So if you have any unpopular cycling opinions or hot takes, send them to wildonespodcast@cademedia.co.uk and we might debate them in a future episode.
I really need to make some jingles, don't I?
I've given up hope, Jimmy. You're not doing it. You're all talk and no action, and I've lost my faith in you.
Okay.
So.
You built him a full music studio.
Oh, tell me about
and he
it.
hasn't
Well,
done
it's
anything.
currently
with it.
covered in dust. Once I clear the dust out from the current phase of renovation, I am definitely going to make some jingles.
Well, I will believe it when I hear it. Should we do Fluff Up of the Week?
Yes. Do we have one?
I've got one.
Go on then.
I'm going to go on a bit of a rant over here, though. But we had a wedding, family wedding in Lancashire. Well, Merseyside, actually, on the weekend, which is on the other side of the country. Drove there in our electric car, which was just killing me. On the way back, driving in, I charged while I was there, drove back and figured I'll get all the way to Scotch Corner and then charge again. Obviously, that didn't work out with all the hills and the weather. And then I was in this long stretch of road between the M6 and the A68, I think it is. And then I saw, okay, there's a charging port, Kirby Longsdale. Got to Kirby Longsdale with 17 miles left on the range. Stood there, Lauren went to go get some coffee, plugged the car in, the charger didn't work.
Ah, rookie error.
Closest charging port from there was 15 miles away.
No.
The 17 miles on, and you know
What,
this.
50?
No, 1.5.
1.5.
1.5, yes, but 17
But with the
miles.
hills.
Your electric car tells you 17 miles doesn't mean it's going to go 17 miles. That's a lie. Obviously, and also starts crawling and goes really slow. So anyway, we made it to Barnard Castle. Got the car charged up, but it was kind of going. And then it got me
Wait,
thinking.
where's the fluff up? It sounds like everything was fine.
Well, it just worked out all right. But I mean,
The fluff up was
the fluff up would have been like
the stress and
the stress and all of this and just kind of pushing it further and further. Because it's not like a petrol car where you stop, you run out of fuel, somebody goes with a jerry can to the nearest petrol station, which there's loads of, brings back some fuel, fill your car up, drive there, fill it up. What do you do if the electric car dies?
you just plan your journey better.
Well, there's that. Breakdown people now, like the AA, they have little charging things.
Yeah, well, which will get you another 3 miles. Yeah, I mean, it's,
that's all you
anyway,
needed.
I'm the car's going back. I'm going back to a petrol car. I don't want to do this, but I think we're getting conned. I mean, 80 pence a kilowatt as well to charge. When I got the car, it was 6 pence.
Well, I mean, thank you for that contribution. I feel like that was like a 6 out of 10 on the fluff up scale. Yeah.
Well, you guys don't have anything this week.
I have a literal fluff up that is happening right now. The dog is sitting on my lap, farting right underneath me. Her bum is underneath me, and she's just gone pff, pff, and every so often she keeps smelling it, and I'm like, yeah, that is you, and I can smell it as well.
I thought you were going to say that you were sitting there farting.
No, well, who knows? I'm going to blame it on her so that when you two smell it, you don't say it's me.
Should we head over to Listeners Takeover?
Yeah, let's do it. First one is from Christian in Denmark, who says, hello, guys. Real nice podcast this week. Thank you.
Last week, or is he?
It was talking about last week.
Okay.
Yeah, but we can apply it to this one. He hasn't heard it yet, but he's mentioned, so it's going to be his favourite. He says, Emily, rest assured, your pronunciation of Vingegaard is probably the best I've heard from a non-Danish speaker. All the best. Thanks for the podcast and content. I get this email quite a bit from Danish people.
We know why it is. It's because you're northern and you mispronounce O's.
Yeah, I'm not trying anything special. Just I heard it was meant to be go, as in G-O, and that is how I say go.
So I've made a little list of words that I'm going to say in a southern pronunciation.
Have you?
Northern hemisphere,
Yeah, you need
southern,
you guys need to
southern
go back to
Britain.
school, yeah, southern Britain.
And you're going to say them in your native accent. No.
No.
Book.
Book.
More.
How is it spelled?
M-O-O-R.
Moor.
Tour, as in Tour de France.
Well, I do say Tour de France only because I don't want to stand out, but how I would actually say it is tour.
Tour.
Yeah, there you go. Next one from Patrick. Hello all. After Jimmy and Francis talked on the podcast about running without headphones, I read someone else's comment on how they never train without music, and that the only time they go without is during races. This year, I've noticed more and more people racing with headphones, even during UCI Gran Fondo events. I don't really think music is a massive advantage, even though it is considered doping. But what worries me is the safety aspect. I do train with music, but I'm very aware of my surroundings all the time. I don't race with music as I don't think you can be aware of other competitors. There's irregular passing, loads of shouting and just chaos at all times, especially at the front groups. I'd like to hear your thoughts on music, both in and out of racing, and if you believe competitors should be allowed to race with music.
It should definitely be banned. I'm surprised. I
Surely
would
it is
imagine
banned.
it is banned and that they're just breaking the rules.
I think that the rules in the UCI Gran Fondos isn't followed very strictly, because I did the tour of Cambridgeshire last year, which is a UCI Gran Fondo, and Josh Reed rode with a full-on cinema camera on his back. And I know they don't really allow cameras, but he was just riding around filming with that thing, and nobody's batted an eyelid about it. So
I think I agree they shouldn't be using headphones for the exact reasons that you've outlined. I find music really annoying with doing exercise and stuff. I don't want to be distracted from what I'm doing. I want to be present and part of it. I want to know when I feel rubbish so that I can do something about it rather than try and distract myself from it, if that makes sense.
no, when I'm riding by myself, I've got my earphones in, listening to the Archers
Listening to the Wild Ones podcast.
and the Archers from BBC Radio 4, because I'm really old. But yeah, I don't think for racing you should use it, but I do like it when training. When we were kids in South Africa training, I had this Russian Igor that used to race with me, and he used to always have earphones, and people used to give him grief saying like, you can't hear the cars coming from behind. And Igor's used to say to them, when I get hit by a car and I'm lying in the road waiting for an ambulance, which can take hours, I'd rather have some music to keep me company. That was his reasoning, which obviously I don't think is.
What do you think about the statement that music is considered doping?
I assumed it was a joke.
And I think people can say music gets you hyped up. At the same time, I think it distracts you. So you're not really, I don't know. I think if you don't have music, you just ride faster to get through it much quicker. So I don't know. Also, if you are racing properly, let's say road race, I'm going to use an example over here. Music will just slow you down because you won't hear that couple of seconds you need when you can hear somebody changing gears about to jump the bunch and you want to follow. Like I can't see it working effectively. You wouldn't be able to sprint properly with it on. There's a lot of stuff you wouldn't be able to do because you wouldn't be aware of what's happening around you. You'd have to be looking around the whole time. Also, if somebody's shouting at a hole or pointing something, you're distracted, you can hit one of them. It's one of those things where I think in racing it will actually slow you down.
Cool. Well, I think we've cleared that one up. Please keep sending your emails, stories, suggestions and fun stuff to wildonespodcast@kmedia.co.uk.
And that is all for this week. I've had great fun this week. That
Yeah.
was a good vibe. It was a good energy. I'm feeling pumped now, and I want to go. After this show, I almost wish we would just continue rolling, get some food, and everyone could just watch us eat pizza and chat about
getting pizza?
life and bikes. Sorry?
Are we getting pizza?
Yeah, I'm going to
I
get
thought
pizza.
spent the budget on.
Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed the show. Make sure you are following and or subscribing so you don't miss out on the next episode. See you on the next one.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Hey, baby.
Come on then.
Oh, good girl. See?
Hello, Bella.
Come on then. Come on then. That's a really weird way to do it.
Fuck's sake, man. She's such a plonker sometimes, isn't she?